In this video, we will be talking about one of the most hyped and confused topic, network effects. Not all network effects are created equal. With all the hype and claims from startup to investors about their network effects, we will explore the 7 questions that you can ask to evaluate how defensible or strong are these network effects. What are network effects and why is it so desirable?
As I think we had talked about in the last video, the reason like every investor and every entrepreneur wants to build or to invest in the next big network effect business is because, so number one, network effects create huge potentially like huge scalability. So businesses can grow very fast at very low cost. So and they can be very defensive.
Maybe the WeWork example also would be a good one to clarify, because obviously, there are some discussion that WeWork has, network effects.
And for instance, P2P lending platforms, right? P2P lending platforms are where, investors invest in loans that are directly with businesses, they're taking out loans. And these were, the examples where it would be like Lending Club. Right. From the investor's point of view, well, they want to have multiple different businesses they can lend to. So obviously they care like there's more than one business they're lending to, but they don't need like thousands and thousands. They just need enough to diversify their portfolio a little bit. On the borrower's side, the company side, they don't really care how many investors are putting their money in. They just need to access money. They just want to borrow money. They don't care where it comes from. So the network effects here are actually not very strong, right? And interestingly, if you look at these P2P lending platforms, over time, they moved away from having individual investors towards institutional investors. So now most of the money is coming from a few large institutional investors. If you look at Lending Club, which is one of the biggest in the US, about 95% of their money is coming from institutional investors. So the idea of like having lots of individual investors lending to lots of individual borrowers has actually not really worked out that well.
Okay. First question was about the total level, the total value add of network effect. The second question is more about like how quickly do you get to this total level? So in some cases, the value of the network effect flattens out very quickly. So, after you get a few users, basically you get all the value of network effects. That was Julian's Uber example. In some other cases, you actually need a lot of users to generate the total value. So the network effects keep increasing for longer. So yes, obviously, if we have a choice, we prefer to invest or, to look at network effects that, keep growing for much longer.
But at some level, it is not also a static thing, right? Because as you know, product features and functionalities as they grow, you can't really fully predict in the beginning as well, because the startup obviously will add product functionality features that will add value and also increase additional network effect.
I think that's a very good point, Josephine. So I think that it is just, as we go through these questions, I think it's important to keep in mind. So we always have in mind, okay, there's a part of it which is kind of exogenously given by the nature of the market, by the nature of the product. But certainly in a lot of cases, the startup can do something about it, right? I mean, you can sort of do something with product design or adding new features in order to kind of push the envelope. Now, I think there are limits. So again, there's exogenously given limits, and we try to get at those. So I mean, with our questions, we try to get at the exogenous limits, but obviously this should also suggest to the startups, well, maybe there are ways in which we can enhance the value of our network.
Yeah, I would like to flip it to see how we can add value and make that happen instead. Having Brian Cox from Succession say, that was a really good one.
You should tell us. You should
you could describe Cameo so people know, and then we can tell you why.
Yeah, you should, Josephine. You should let us know your favorite actors, and we'll offer you whatever, like a personalized message from your favorite actor from Cameo for your birthday.
I'm surprised to find Sarah Palin there. I'm surprised to find Kenny G there, because I'm like, is he still alive?
I mean, you'd be surprised that something like Cameo, which is clearly international, there are a bunch of competitors in other countries, right? Like if I'm going to do the K-pop market or the, a particular country's Bollywood, yeah. I mean, I need to get those people on there, right? And if I don't have the connections, even though I have a lot of people in the US and Australia and UK coming to my site, it may not help that much.
For a question that we have talked about, it's really about the strength of the network effects. And the next 3 that we're going to talk about are really about defensibility. Can you just quickly talk about like what is the difference? I'm thinking that if it's strong network effect, it just means it's good defensibility. So like what is the subtle difference between the two?
Like Zoom, Zoom has massive network effects and it's grown very big. But then the question is that defensible? And Uber is another example, right? Uber has strong network effects because you want to join where there are more drivers, and drivers want to join where there are more people looking for rides. So strong network effects, but how defensible is people are joining multiple platforms. We say they're multi-homing, right? They're adopting competing platforms. The question here is, how difficult is it for users to do that?
What would be some examples of that would stop somebody to multi-home or make it more difficult for them to multi-home? For the startup that has network effects that score well on these 3 questions, it's good if they have a first mover advantage, right? Because everybody start from chicken and egg, critical mass. Once you have critical mass, all these 3 defensibility then makes sense. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because everybody anyway have to start from that chicken and eggs in order to have that liquidity, in order to have that hard to coordinate, to leave, all that stuff, right?
Actually, just related to that point, if you're evaluating investing in startups and you looked at these 7 criteria and you say, on this market, you've got all 7 things are holding, this looks really good. If you're the first mover, it's like, that's great. You definitely want to invest. If you're the second mover, and there's an existing incumbent and you have all these 7 features, it's actually a bad thing, right? Like, just to emphasize Andrea's point, we just see it all the time. Like when we're looking at deal memos, right? Like we've got network effects, and then we're like, where are the network effects? Either they're very minuscule or they're just completely confused. They're not network effects at all, right? And it just comes up again and again and again. The other sort of similar point is they'll say we are Uber for X, or we're Airbnb for Y. And when you look at what they're doing, it doesn't make any sense at all, right? Like not a good understanding of the business models of those businesses.
Yeah.
On the positive side, sometimes they're actually overlooking the potential to add network effects into businesses or turn the businesses into platforms. So they're actually underselling the potential of the business because they haven't realized there's this product to platform transformation that can happen that is actually creates a much more valuable product or service than the original one that's being put forward.
You're gonna have some surprise guests as well?
I mean, they're not surprise guests, but yes, we'll have a venture capitalist, someone who's very experienced investing in marketplaces. So they've been looking at marketplaces for many years. We'll have a startup founder, so someone who has actually founded a marketplace and is in the process of trying to grow that marketplace. And we'll also have an executive at a large company with successful experience turning a product into platforms.
Today we went through 7 or 8 questions, right? We actually, when we look at like investing in network effects businesses, we have 24 questions. 24 questions around network effects. So there's actually a lot more depth you can go into, but obviously, we don't have time. And
great. So you're going to have a multiple, region cohort?
Yeah, no, I think so. Having an Australian company and a US VC could be interesting.
So I hope you enjoyed this discussion that we have, which is about the most hyped and most confused topic amongst investors and startup, which is about network effects.